This is going to be my most important video of 2023. They say don't fly too close to the sun. Today I'm in the very least going to catch a major sunburn. What I'm about to tell you, if I tell you too much, will get me canceled. So I'm going to straddle that line of that Overton window to the best of my capability. But before I do that and disclose what I need to say, we got to talk about a quick summary of what's going on in the world. Your 1-minute breakdown. Here we go. We got street battles in every major city around the world. People arguing about the Palestine versus Israel situation. The biggest protests that we have ever seen in the history of mankind, when taken as a whole, are happening as a result of what's affecting 10 million people in one of the smallest land masses on earth. We got violent protests, shootings, stabbings, mischief, arson, total pandemonium and bedlam. We got cyber attacks impacting the world's largest bank in China only days after there was a major internet shutdown in Australia. What a surprise. Cyber attacks double in 2023. That's because it's World War III. The Houthis, the honey badger of the Middle East, shoot down a U.S. drone, take full credit for it, and they got no FUCKs to give, and now suddenly their internet is down. That means that the war is about to start there. We have ballistic missile and drone attacks from the Houthis on Israel continuing by the day. We got Hezbollah gets Russian missile defense and brandishes Russian anti-ship missiles for the world to see. Are they ever going to act? Well, I guess we're going to find out. I'm going to break down the whole thing because, guys, I had an epiphany. I went and sat on a mountaintop for 48 hours. I figured out exactly what is going on. I'm going to bet the house on this prediction that I'm about to share with you, so please stick with me. Russians say do not travel to the USA and that it might cut U.S. diplomatic ties, that it's going to be scaling down its ambassador force, diplomatic force that it has in the United States. Everybody's saying, oh, the war with Russia is almost over and Ukraine's about to fold. Not even close. Don't believe any of that. It hasn't even started yet. NATO is threatening to blockade Kaliningrad. Yes, you heard correct. Russia is losing S-400. They lost 4 units. These are very expensive systems in just the last month. And who is the culprit? ATACMS. They're starting to redistribute S-400 from around their massive country, and I'll show you the map of all their military bases in just a moment, to Ukraine because they're running low. And this is a problem because, of course, this is a part of their strategic arsenal. If they have to move stuff from abroad around Ukraine, then that creates pockets, that creates vacuums, weak points where they can potentially be exploited by their adversaries, and that means that they become more likely to execute, let's just say, I don't want to say nuclear options, but they're much more likely to perhaps take down a NATO plane or two. Let's put it that way. A German general is saying that Russia has amassed a massive force and is preparing to take over Odessa. Something has definitely changed in the Black Sea in terms of the flight patterns of U.S. reconnaissance drones, and it's major, and it's quite telling. And Zelensky is once again prolonging martial law and mobilization in the country. This is something that happens every 3 months. He kicks that can down the road. North Korea is continuing to shut embassies down around the world. Remember, Kim Jong-un said that he expects World War III by the end of the year, which is why he's forcing his agricultural ministry to get the grain silos topped off before November. And apparently the Russians are providing the North Koreans with nuclear technology. China continues to slowly and subtly surround Taiwan. Russia is now pledging to massively build up its military in light of the suspension of the Conventional Forces Arms Treaty. Half of the United States will be susceptible to grid down this winter, and Russian oil and gas hits a record high since the last 18 months. Oh, and did I mention that we added $500 billion in debt? $500 billion in debt. Yes, I say Canada and the United States synonymously. I always do it because we're in the same damn sinking ship. We got the same culture, we got the same border, we got the same language. Even my quarters will fit in your machines, okay? That's how close we are. So yes, USA goes down, we go down with you. We're all in this shitty sinking ship together. Okay, now this is my theory, guys. Get a load of this. I'm going to break it all down. You guys are getting sick and tired of seeing Nasrallah on the back of the screen. So let's just, let's put up a map that's relevant to the conversation here. Let's go here. This is relevant to the conversation now. I just want you to listen to what I have to say because something is going on in the Middle East. Recall that for the last couple months, I've been bringing on numerous guests who have insider information. Open source, but insider information. And you got to look for these breadcrumbs. You got to look for these clues about what's about to happen. Steve from Wholesale Freeze Dry, 2 months ago, told me that for some reason the government is starting to stock up on food and he doesn't know why. I've received messages for many months saying, Nate, why is it that all the U.S. aircraft carriers are suddenly docked and not in operation, almost as if they're getting prepared for a very long foray into God knows where. So what this tells us is that there was, or at least we can infer, that perhaps there was a bigger plan. Perhaps somebody just had a feeling about something. We'll say, we'll play it good. We're not gonna get into the realm of conspiracies here because everything I'm about to tell you, there's a path of explanation that you don't have to go there, okay? But you can go there if you want. I'm not gonna go there. We're flying close to the sun, but we're not going to get majorly burned today. Not yet. We got to keep this thing going until the wheels fall off, until the bitter end, until we all catch a 100,000-degree suntan, a nuclear one anyways. So we know months in advance the U.S. warships were getting docked. They were getting prepared for something. This is way before October 7th. Okay, this is over summertime now. Into September, everybody's saying all this military activity, stuff moving everywhere, ships getting loaded up. What the hell's going on? Massive orders being purchased for food, for MREs, for deployment, for soldiers. What the hell is going on? Now, what we know right now is that the leader of Hamas is in Egypt right now. This guy that's just running around scot-free. Remember, Hamas has been designated as a terrorist organization by the United States and Israel. So they're well within their legal right as far as international. I mean, I don't even know if you could, international law really doesn't matter. I mean, who's going to enforce it, right? The ICC, what can they? Who's going to, UN, what are they going to do? So it doesn't matter. Within their own sort of metric of trying to, understand the world, they say that terrorists deserve to be killed. So therefore, if we deem Hamas a terrorist organization, why can't they decapitate it? They could easily decapitate it. The guy's staying in a building, a guitar, they could shoot his plane down, they could do 101 different things, and they could justify it easily if they truly wanted. So why is this guy running around scot-free? Now, some people will say, well, you want to leave the head of the snake alive because that's who you're going to have to negotiate. That's why the Russians haven't taken out Zelensky, yada, yada, yada. I've heard that whole line before. That's typically not how the U.S. plays ball, or the Israelis, okay? So we know that they could assassinate him. So what if, I just say what if, because remember, Hamas are Sunnis, okay? Hamas are a part of the Arab states, more so, or they're more so influenced by the Arab states than Iran, which is Persian, right? They don't like considering themselves to be Arabs anyways. So even with this map, which is a U.S. made map, a U.S. biased map, it shows you all of the different groups that are associated with Iran. Okay, so you have all these names I cannot pronounce and I'm not going to care to. All I can pronounce is the Houthis because they're the honey badger of the Middle East. And then you got Hezbollah over here that everybody knows. And you got all these names here in Iraq and then a few in Bahrain and elsewhere. So why is it then? Is it possible? I propose this to you. I invite you to consider this thought. Is it possible that maybe Hamas and Hezbollah and the Persians are not as aligned as we think? Maybe the IRGC right now is trying to be baited into something, because remember what our guest Joel Skousen said on the channel. over a couple weeks ago. He came on and he said one very significant thing that has stuck with me ever since he said it. He said that the U.S. military really is serving no purpose in the Middle East at this point in time. Some people say, well, they're, oil fields and stability and blah, 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 blah. Arguably, a handful of troops there, a few thousand troops, is not keeping that place on lockdown. If you couldn't keep it on lockdown with hundreds of thousands, ain't no way in hell you're doing it with the 30,000 troops that are there across the entirety of the Middle East. So something else is going on. So he proposes that maybe they're being kept there as bait, right? So that they could be bloodied, in his words, that would justify some sort of large-scale mobilization of the U.S. military, the largest we've ever seen on a naval scale in this region. I don't have the maps up today, but I've shown you the maps before. This is the largest buildup ever. Anybody thinking that this is about Gaza? This is not about Gaza, okay? Nobody is going to come and save the Gazan people. I regret to inform you. Unfortunately, they're being used politically on all sides right now. And Iran made a very good point. Iran was criticized by this British reporter. The Brits were saying, well, why don't you come to the aid of, the Palestinians and this and that? Remember, Iran is primarily Shiites, as far as I know. And I'm not an expert on Muslims, but I know that Shiites and Sunnis typically don't get along, at least not up until they were both about to join BRICS, and China brokered that deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia as of recent, which I'm sure now is on thin ice. Because somebody came in there and said, no, we got to stop this. We got to drive a wedge between the Muslim community once again. So is it possible that this Hamas is being let it do its thing right now and not decapitating the head of the snake, and so that to bring the IRGC into a conflict with the West? Is that possible? Now, something you need to consider, and I view this objectively as possible. I know people think there's a lot of Islamic bias against Islamic people in the United States. Some of it might be justified in terms of the radicalization and whatnot, but at the same time, you have to ask yourself, why on earth would the Iranians and the IRGC want to continue to poke and prod the U.S., knowing what's going on, understanding the big picture? Look, if I can figure this out, they sure as hell can figure it out. So we have to ask ourselves, are the IRGC-backed groups actually doing this? Now, according to the IRGC, they claim that they're not. Iran denies being against the attacks. And I'm not saying we take them on their word. I'm just saying we think about this, okay? The Islamic Republic of Iran has never been involved in any actions or attacks directed at the United States military forces in Syria and Iraq. Now, of course, people are going to say, Nate, you're so naive. They're never going to admit to something like that, just like the Russians won't admit to, invading blah, 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 or, the Israelis won't admit to having nuclear weapons. I get it. I get that. But what if? What if there's something more to this? Because understand, these Iranian proxies, as they're called, this is like Iran's avant-garde. You got to put yourself in Iran's position. And I know that's hard for us North Americans to do, to put ourselves in the shoes of the other people, right? And their international airspace and their protective, defensive, psychological mindset that has U.S. military bases all around their border, or has historically. Yes, they've been scaled back as of recent. You're imagining yourself as Iran. You know that instability within these other countries could potentially encroach on your space. You're one of the most heavily sanctioned. They won't let you have nuclear weapons because they think you're immediately going to go rogue and end Israel and all this stuff. And, I don't think that that's a motive. I don't understand how that could be a motive. I could see them wanting leverage so that they could not be pushed around in the rest of the world. But, there's going to be some people who are just hell-bent on, no, Iran is just pure evil and they just want to kill us all. And to me, that's incredibly oversimplistic when you really think about it, okay? So their avant-garde is really these militia groups that are in here trying to kind of keep the barbarian hordes at bay, if you will, to kind of keep their sphere of influence broader than the Castle Keep, which of course is the Iranian mainland. So we know that inside sources in Egypt Egypt has been outspoken about this. This is reported on all major news networks, okay? That Egypt has notified the Israelis that prior to this attack that something suspicious was about to go on. Now, I've seen some videos that allege that showing all these guys suiting up, getting ready for this mission. They're doing it in a building that has no walls. It looks like it's just a canopy. There's a lot of weird things that happened that day. I'm not going to get into it because, again, we're going to stay inside that Overton window. But what we know is that Egypt was trying to warn Israel that something was going on. Now you have the leader of Hamas in Egypt, okay? Egypt does not want to bring in 2 million refugees from Gaza. And if you don't think they're not going to have to do that, think again. Because wait until the Israelis, once they're able to clean up the north, which some people think it's going to take them years. I've heard other people say, oh, they'll be done in a month. Regardless, once they pivot south, okay, not only are we going to see worldwide outrage, okay, because we know what that's going to be. That's going to be like putting them in a vice. It's going to be squeezing them. They're going to have nowhere to go except across the Rafah border. That's why the Egyptians have 2 divisions of military. I've shown you all the footage of that amassing and that staging of military force in that region. Are they sending Israel a message? We don't know yet. Why is the leader of Hamas in Egypt? That is the question. Obviously, people will say, well, I mean, if you're looking at it through a cynical lens, you'll say, well, Hamas is in the process of trying to coordinate how to get its fighters stuff or get its guys out or whatever. Other people might say, well, no, they're trying to negotiate a peace deal, a rapprochement between the Israelis and Hamas. It's possible, but very unlikely. There's no way Netanyahu can allow Hamas to grow, especially now that he's killed so many people, civilians. Hamas' population has doubled, tripled. I seen Elon Musk biting my rhymes today. Remember when I told you guys about a week ago that the solution to this problem was for the Israelis to be as charitable as possible, to create as much of an effort as possible to get as much aid in there as possible to make it very, he coined a new term, conspicuously, okay? Do it, do it so it's so obvious and so overt to the world that you're trying very, very hard, because if you don't, every civilian you kill, you create more Hamas members. Elon, if you've watched one of my videos, man, just send me an email, because I got to talk to you about how you're going to survive the end of the world. Because I know you got a plan. I know you're just planning on going to Mars or digging tunnels with your boring company or whatever the hell it is, but we got to talk. So please, we're almost there, guys. We're going to get there. We're going to get to Elon someday, I promise you. Now listen, the Gaza situation, this is just the overture to the main course, which is coming. Everything that I've laid out thus far points towards this is a build-up. And this event was just the linchpin. It's kind of like Iraq in 2003. September 11th was the unrelated event, but now they're going for the big dog, Iran. We got House Resolution 559 just put in about a week ago. Now we got another resolution coming on Monday, which is going to be about Hezbollah. 559 is so that the Iranians can't get a nuclear weapon, and basically allows Israel and the United States, and they specifically put Israel in that bill, because when Israel does attack Iran, which for whatever reason, if you can believe that Israel is an American proxy and they're at the behest of the United States, or maybe the tail's wagging the dog, I don't know. I just know that that bill is going to give them the ability to wage a war against Iran. And by the time this all goes down, they're going to have all the pieces in place. Remember, biggest naval buildup in history in this region. Some people are saying that the Gaza Strip situation is going to take years, okay? And it's possible. Right now, the Israelis are saying, oh yeah, we got it worked out. They're putting flags on the beach. Like, what does that mean, to put a flag on the beach? That's the outskirts of Gaza City, okay? It could very well be that this is just going to be a killing field, and it's just going to be, either they're going to have to nuke it. Remember what the Israeli defense minister said the other day. He said we might have to make some difficult decisions It's very important that we keep all the data in our heads because there's so much information coming out. Difficult decisions. What does he mean by that? What does he mean by difficult decisions that they haven't made already? Are they talking about withdrawing? No, no, no. There's no way they're going to withdraw. If they withdraw, I mean, it's the end on so many levels, okay? So what do they mean by withdrawal? What are they going to do there? Now, we know that there's still apparently over half of the population that lives here. Everybody thinks, well, this is all evacuated. It's not, okay? And that's the problem. There's still people in these hospitals. I've heard estimates of only 10% of the people have left. Because if you actually look at the population density, okay, it's mostly dense, this population density in 2020. So this doesn't count the additional 300,000 inhabitants. So the population is most dense in the north. Okay, so they're saying that there's still at least 500,000 people there. 500,000 people. How are the Israelis going to operate in an environment with 500,000 people when they're not utilizing or all utilizing the corridor? Sure, they're going to continue to file south. Remember that when they were like, hey, everybody's got to move south in 24 hours? What a joke. And surely nobody did. Okay, nobody left at that time. They made it look like there was some people leaving, but there wasn't. So either the Israelis are lying and it's not going well, and they're just putting up flags on the beaches to make people think that, oh yeah, we got this case, they've encircled it. That's the big thing. Well, guess what? They encircled Bakhmut a year before they took the damn place, pretty much. Maybe not a year, but it was a long time. They encircled the Azovstal steel plant months before they actually took it. It didn't mean shit. The Azovstal steel plant with the Russians, okay, and that was a fraction of the size. That's the greatest comparison that I've not heard anybody make. Azovstal compared to this. You can quote me on that one. Azovstal steel plant. How long did that take? And those tunnels arguably were not as deep, okay? And the Russians were just laying it on thick day after day after day. And the guys, it wasn't even a lot of guys who were stuck in there. You're talking about 35,000 guys in this city that all they've had to do over the last few years is plan this out. Imagine what you, as one person, can do in 10 years, okay? And now imagine if 35,000 of you and all their auxiliaries and all their helpers and whatnot, you put all of that manpower into the purpose of digging tunnels and preparing for this eventual thing. They must have known that there was going to be this response. They must have known there was going to be a full-out invasion. Come on, this was the biggest military attack on Israel in its history. So, well, since, the many wars. But, they knew that there was going to be this. So they're prepared for this, okay? They are very prepared for this. Not counting the fact that who knows how many tunnels go under this supposed area here. They're probably going to try to, blow out a line here or whatever. I don't know what they're going to do. But either way, Hamas is prepared for this, okay? And they're still going to have to go south. So when they go south, you already have this political unrest on a level that we've never before seen. They're going to start passing laws here in Canada. That's exactly what they want. The whole poster bullshit and, people are putting that up to provoke people. I'm not saying I don't care about the hostages and all that, but understand what that's about. And now the Palestinians are doing it back. So now it's like poster wars. And you're getting this WWE crap. Look at this. This is real life, okay? This is like a scene out of, I can't really show you it because maybe I can show you some clips here, but look at this. The one guy with the mask, this guy's got an Israeli cape. This is the WWE. It's the purge. It's happening all over. Look at these cops. They don't know what the hell to do. All these guys are like, these guys like built like a cop. Maybe these are all just cops. I don't know what's going on, man. But all I can say is that this is getting wildly out of control, and they've encircled the north. They haven't even gotten started in going into the major city yet, okay? And could you imagine when, we've seen 10,000 Palestinians die. What happens if that number goes up to 100,000? Because it could. They're already saying that the numbers are drastically undercounted, and how could they not be? They've dropped almost 10,000 bombs. Are you telling me each one of those bombs only killed an average of one person? I doubt it. Not counting casualties, okay? Because we know that the casualties from these explosions are probably going to be like 3 to 1 at least, 4 to 1 maybe, in terms of comparison to deaths. So this situation is going to get out of control. And then you got the guy shooting in Panama, the climate protester was actually not Stop Oil. People are saying that it was a climate activist. It kind of sort of was, but it was about a mine. Okay, I think it had something to do with indigenous rights. Regardless, people are losing their minds. Okay, because while all this is happening, and part of the reason why it's all happening is economic contraction. So everybody's feeling the pinch. Another interesting thing to point out is that Egypt is only using, allegedly, the lowest estimates I've heard is like 5% of its military. You have to remember, they mobilized those 300,000 reserves. I believe they had, what is it, like maybe 100,000 troops. I'm probably overstating that. It's probably not that much. Well, conservative, maybe 70,000. But allegedly, they only have one division of guys doing this Gaza mission for now. So if that's the case, what are they saving all these other troops for? You might say, well, it's the West Bank because the West Bank has been heating up. Jenin, there's street battles in the West Bank, which is not unprecedented, but it's certainly rare. And the fact that they're dropping ordnance in Jenin is something. And the West Bank is way bigger than Gaza. So if shit pops off there, you know, maybe that's what they're holding their forces for. Maybe they're worried about Egypt. Maybe they're worried about Hezbollah, which they're warring with on a daily basis, dropping massive bombs there. The U.S. just delivered another, what was it? Is it 300 or 3,000 of these giant bombs? And everybody's like, oh, Gaza's going to get it. Is it really for Gaza? Or is it for Hezbollah? Okay? So Hezbollah, Iran, trying to get baited in here. And Hezbollah and Iran are saying, we're not going to take the bait. This is a conversation I was having with a friend, the friend who owns a bunker that's for sale in Austria. If you're around the Austrian region and you want a real deal military grade bunker, okay, built for war, essentially let me know and I'll give you his information. You can contact him about it. I'm not sure what the selling price is. Anyways, sorry about the tangents. We've been talking about how all of this is starting to look as though, you know, Hezbollah and Iran are being pressured by their Muslim communities, right? Jordan being pressured by their Muslim communities and their predominantly Palestinian community to take action. People are saying, Nasrallah, why don't you do something? Not understanding the big picture, okay? The leaders, they understand the big picture. They understand why the U.S. warships are there. They understand why Jordan has given its airspace to the United States. They understand why there's stratotankers flying around Saudi Arabia, okay? They know what's going on, which is why they're not ready to pull the trigger yet. However, remember what Joel Skousen also said. Wise old man, if there ever was one. He said that he thinks Iran might actually almost be ready. It knows it has to fight this fight someday. It's just, when is it going to be ready? When are they going to start lighting up oil fields? Because that's going to be one of the main bargaining chips here. And this is something that the United States has to factor into their calculus. Because if things go really sideways, what the Iranians, Hezbollah, the resistance fighters throughout the entire region, the Houthis, they're going to light up every single oil refinery, because you can't put missile defense on all of these things. And even if you can is it going to work effectively, right? And what is that going to do to the global markets? Global fucking chaos. I told you I was going to drop an F-bomb in every video from this point forward because it's just that time and it just doesn't matter anymore. So if you believe the official narrative, right, and that Hamas can keep a secret that well, that, you know, I mean, think about this. Apparently, allegedly, the human intelligence that the Israelis have, they might not have the best, they got signals intelligence too. I mean, it's a panopticon. They can see everything that goes on inside their drones, satellites, the whole 9 yards. But their human intelligence was supposed to be very good. and they pay off the Gazans, right? Gazans struggling under oppression and coercion. They are willing to maybe, do something for a little bribe. So they will give up information about what's going on. How is it possible that this massive operation, nobody knew about it? Now, if you believe that, though, then you also have to believe that if they can keep that a secret, and if they can function that well without anybody else knowing, what else are they capable of? Okay? And that's why this whole idea, you can't believe both of these things. You can't believe that Hamas is that competent in that respect, and that Israel is just going to be able to enclose this like it's a video game. Okay? It's not. It is not going to happen. Because when they do, even if they did that, once they head south, that's it. What are they going to say? Okay, go back to this, go back to what? The rubble? I mean, do you know how much money it's going to cost to rebuild this city? And they're not going to pay for it, is the thing, right? It's going to be the Palestinians. And then what are they going to have to deal with down the road? There's just going to be another group that emerges. So anyways, where are we in my analysis here? So we talked a little bit about the fact that the Saudis and the Iranians had a bit of rapprochement that was brokered between the Chinese, right? The Chinese brokered a deal, and Iran and Saudi Arabia were supposed to enter BRICS at the end of the year. But suddenly, this whole situation gets dropped on the Saudis, and now the Saudis have to make a decision. They were getting ready to make a run for it.